So awesome to have Scott Carney on, who is a medical anthropologist, investigator, trying to bring truth and critical evaluation of so many things, including the world of medicine. And here on the podcast, we try to work with people who often fall into the gaps of medical care and sometimes are desperate to try anything. And sometimes that leads to attempts with care that isn't the most evidence based. And you've gotten a chance to investigate that. That's how I've connected through your YouTube, your information, your Substack. And just first, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to a wide variety of people who are trying to understand the insane complexities of health, where answers are hard to come by and they may not even be there. So they get wrapped up into people who offer lies instead.
Yeah. Can you just give us a little more about your background and how you got to what you do? And then we'll dive into some kind of questions to help equip and tease out some of these claims that are made in the world of wellness and health.
Sure. So I'm an investigative journalist. I used to write for Wired and National Public Radio and Mother Jones and Playboy, like all of the big magazines that were out there that you could support yourself on as a journalist. But before that, I was getting my PhD in cultural anthropology and with sort of emphasis in medical anthropology side of that. But I dropped out at the dissertation. I was at the dissertation. I was like, why do I want to be an academic when I want to talk to actually people who read my work? And so that's how I ended up in the public facing world. And I guess you could say I began by doing like very traditional hardcore reporting, doing sort of war zone stuff. I was exposing criminal networks, particularly around organ trafficking, mostly in South Asia. But I became more well-known in the sort of wellness fitness world when I put a book out called What Doesn't Kill Us, about this ice work and breath work guru named Wim Hof. And I was right, you're on YouTube and you're of a certain age and a certain profile. Your Instagram feed is full of ripped dudes in ice baths. And I am partially responsible for that horror show of your scrolling feed. And the book was quite popular. I think I have it over here. Yeah. Here's the book, What Doesn't Kill Us. And there's surprising things that happen in that world of wellness that you have all these pioneers going out there trying to try things that maybe evidence-based medicine hasn't gotten around to proving, and you want to be on that sort of vanguard of stuff. And sometimes really interesting things come out of it. And I found a lot of benefits from ice work and breath work. But the problem is, in the world we live in now, not when I was writing that in 2017, where I thought these would be complements to evidence-based medicine, because we could just look at evidence and say, hey, look, there's something here. Now we live in a world where we've basically thrown out evidence and we just want charisma. And we live in a world now where all these, the people I was writing about in this are now charlatan gurus selling health bullshit. So it's a really hard world. It's very hard for people who are suffering from conditions that they want to have fixed, that are nebulous and chronic, and they just want to do something that makes the symptoms go away. And as I said a little earlier, there's always someone out there telling you they have the way to fix it if you sign up for my course, my supplement regimen, buy this thing that doesn't work, or just give me a subscribe and you listen to me randomly rant on Instagram. There's so many of those people. But evidence is hard. And so what I'm trying to do on the internet is show people how to think about evidence, how to evaluate it, and realize at the same time that health is a journey that we're all trying to figure out. And it always ends in death, unfortunately. You can't get around that. So that's me. Hi.
So awesome to have. And I love your critical thinking and evaluation. And that's a big part of working in the medical field. And I know you've shared that you're the minority in your family. I think most of them are doctors, aren't they? Or come from a lot of medical people.
Going back like 3 generations, like my great grandfather, Philemon Truesdale the first, was like famous for performing one of the first hiatal hernia surgeries in America. So yeah, we are a long and storied family of doctors, but not me. I'm a critic of medical stuff.
And it's interesting bringing up the history, and I've talked about some of this on the podcast, is where we're at now in frustration, but these are conditions often that have been going on for over 100 years, described in medical literature, given different names. And when the classic biomedical system had such success, we get penicillin, we have anesthesia, you can actually do surgery, you can do things. There was a time when they thought tooth abscesses were everything, and tonsillitis and
Yep.
abscesses. Well, everybody got their teeth pulled and everybody got their tonsils taken out. And then he said, maybe that's not the cure all. It was good for some people, but sometimes overstepping the evidence.
Sure.
And
Yeah, that's the history of medicine, right? Is it's a lot of experimenting, and when you experiment, sometimes things go right, but more often than not, they don't. And that is the world. It was interesting at the turn of the 1800s when you're talking about the tooth removal, for instance, that was linked to schizophrenia. So you could cure the schizophrenia if you got rid of the tooth abscess. So you had a lot of now toothless schizophrenics. That was the outcome of that situation. And maybe one person or two people like randomly recovered, because sometimes people recover from things randomly, and they correlated it with this is me being generous. I don't know. I
yes,
don't know for sure, but maybe they correlated a random event with a non-random event, which is actually a huge problem with right now in the scientific literature. We have all of these, there's so many medical studies out there, and to really understand something at a population level and to know something works, you generally have to have giant sample sizes to start to tease out things. But what we see in the medical literature over and over again right now are a lot of promising studies. Like I call it B plus science. Here's something that's pretty cool. And it's done on 14 people or 20 people or maybe 150 people, but which is not usually enough to start to tease out cause and effect. And yet people act on those things as if they were that powerful. And it's hard not to come across studies like that. If you see a popular podcaster out there, and who has a cool idea, it's almost like at best it's B plus science, because all the A plus science, I mean, costs a lot of money, and it's all sold back to you as a pharmaceutical. So yeah, there's the other problem.
yeah. So, talking about this, when we look at this group living with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and all these other invisible illnesses, based on your investigations, what have you learned about how these vulnerable populations are targeted?
I can't speak to fibromyalgia directly because it's not an illness that I have done personal research
Yeah.
into. So I don't want to put myself up as an expert. I'm not going to give you the solution to that. What I will say is that the internet is a sales pipeline, right? When you're on YouTube, when you're on wherever, the way that it works right now is that they call them click funnels, right? So you get something that attracts someone's interest, a big free video, a flashy whatever. You've seen it, you've scrolled past it. Those are all the tops of the click funnels. And you can make money as an influencer on YouTube ads. That's what I try to do because I have a YouTube channel. Like I'm there, right? But that's not very much money. That's $4 for every 1,000 views. It's not a lot. You're not going to make a lot of money doing that unless you're always getting millions and millions of views. So what the click funnels do is they catch your attention, and then they try to create types of subscribers who will then buy the next product. Buy my course, buy my newsletter, buy my thing. And it's not bad in and of itself. Fine. You're going to sell a newsletter. That's cool. And then there's another one where you buy the more expensive thing, and there's the product, and they try to go after what they call whales. Like ultimately you get the person to give you a lot of money, and that's how you support. That is the business model of the internet. And unfortunately, it's not a business model that promotes trust as much as it promotes people getting into that funnel. So what happens is at the very top of that funnel, they offer you promises to the problems that you have. You're suffering from fibromyalgia. You have symptoms. You don't like those symptoms, and you go on the internet looking for ways to alleviate those symptoms. Like such is the journey that we all take. But once you've done that, the efficacy, the claims they make don't actually have to be backed up for them to make money on you. And this is what we see. This is the nature of all scams on the internet. Unfortunately, it's also the nature of the real stuff, right? Because it's just that is the model of the internet. There's not another model out there. So weeding out the truth from the charlatans is very difficult. And still the rule of thumb, which is you already know this, if it sounds too good to be true, it almost definitely is. And people don't want to hear that. Unfortunately, the internet wants people to be lied to. That's how you make money. If you lie to someone on the internet, then you will be rich. If you want to spread truth, there's no money in truth. We don't value that anymore.
In my 5th year anniversary in August from doing this podcast and learning more and just trying to give information for this group, trying to use evidence-based information as the primary goal, because I do have a job that can support me. But you realize, how do people who are these podcasters, influencers, where do they get money? And either you're getting commercials for your podcast, which may be from people who are selling things that are not so evidence-based, but then promoting that, or you're just trying to, like you say, get views or just offer good evidence. And that's just part of how things work. If it was obviously false, if there wasn't some truth in there, people wouldn't believe it. But often these, I think, have partial truths in there. Like, there's some science, and then there's that extra 20%. I know that you've talked about where you can believe some, and you were rating different medical influencers
Mhm.
based on different levels of that. And I think it often starts with validation, like somebody's listening to you for the first time. They understand your plight, you have this, and then their conclusion may not be the greatest. Like, you may have mold toxicity and you're going to have this special supplement
Mm.
to try to sell to fix that.
Right.
But it explains all of the answers, but it's at least somebody for the first time is listening to them. And I think that vulnerability is by just listening and validating that they are suffering.
Although, to be fair, they're not actually listening to you. They're on a video and they're broadcasting to you. They're just speaking to your particular problem. And I think that's what you're actually outlining is the nature of parasocial relationships on the internet, where you feel like you know someone. Hello, viewer. I'm talking to you right now. You, not our podcast host. I'm talking to you. We don't know each other. We've never met, unless you're a random person who I have met in real life. We have not met. And yet we feel like there is a relationship here. And unfortunately, it's being mediated by the internet, and it makes you feel connected. And then people will use that connection to upsell you to other things. And it's a conceit that we make when we're on the internet. You'll see people who all the time will be like, I love you, viewer. I love you. And they want to hear it. We all want to be loved, right? We all like hearing that. We don't like hearing the opposite. You're a bad person. That doesn't feel good to hear that. And I don't think that our monkey brains have evolved to truly understand what's actually going on the internet. But we need to introduce skepticism back into our life at our own physical level, from the perspective of not behind a camera, but in our bodies and our own minds, to realize that the world, or the economies of the world, are acting on us all the time. And so when you have these influencers, they will, so you mentioned toxic mold toxicity, right? You have a problem, a chronic illness, and someone will say, and science doesn't really know what causes most chronic illness, right? It's probably a variety of factors, from genetics to bad luck to toxic exposures, diet, nutrition, pharmaceutical, like anything that could go into it, your body could be an input that causes this. And more than likely, it's a combination of lots of stuff. But people will tell you, in fact, the entire field of functional medicine, this is a very popular type of medicine that is certainly being marketed to you, viewer, personally, is based on this idea that science is so complex. There's so many inputs that you have to change everything that goes into your body to fix your issue. I think I have the books of functional medicine books on my bookshelf here somewhere. And the problem is that they will lay out for you that you need to measure every biomarker. You have to look at every hormone, every input, and then they'll look at all of this data. And I don't know, because they're geniuses, identify what the actual fundamental cause is, and they'll give you a protocol to fix it. And the thing is, unless they are actually geniuses, unless they are superhuman, supercomputers, things that can see through the veil of complexity and reality to identify the 1 or 20 causes that cause your trauma, then you're just listening to some person reading tea leaves. And I think that's actually what happens most of the time. I don't think we've ever come across a doctor who's in the functional medicine field who's, yep, I got the cure for your thing. I looked at your data and I nailed it every time. Usually what they'll say is, oh, no, we didn't get it quite right. Maybe we'll tweak something. You'll pay me more. And I will now be ministering to you for life as you dump money into their non-working program. I bet you this should resonate with a lot of people on this podcast, who I have never met.
Yeah. And it's just trying to separate out working as a lifestyle medicine doctor. There's a lot of things that overlap, but then there's the evidence base, like positive social contacts, good and good sleep, good and good rest, and trying to do those things. And then there's this, well, what regular medicine doesn't tell you, and then here are some special tests, which I have people now, as many doctors may be listening. Well, I've got this list of tests. I paid $1,000 prescription, and it's from this doctor, Mark Hyman from Cleveland Clinic, and they bring them in. I'm like, okay, there's some tests, but that's money in there. That's a marketing to sell those tests, and there's some of that pseudoscience, and yet there's a couple things. Yes, I can take that, and there's some basic things, but then there's that extra stretch beyond. And often what I've heard too is, well, it's the N of one. When I've listened to someone, well, it's the N of one. We're checking, we're testing, we're so many unique individuals, and sometimes that is, again, not the most evidence-based science. If then you have anecdotal thing like the therapeutic relationship of trust with somebody, and maybe I got better, but I was going to get better because I am eating a little better. And if you're investing a lot of money in something, maybe the fact that you gave up junk food and you started walking every day, you're feeling more energy. It isn't a
Sure. I mean,
supplement.
you're just talking about the varieties of the human experience, the placebo effect, the adherence effect, the mysterious stuff in medicine where, even an antibiotic, if you take an antibiotic and there's some really cool studies by the Cochrane Institute and a couple others looking at appendectomy. Okay. So that sucks. Appendectomy is could be fatal, right? They looked at placebo response of no treatment for appendectomy versus antibiotics for appendectomy. And what they were measuring is sort of the clinical outcomes from that. And they found that placebo was as 80% as effective as the antibiotic for appendicitis. So the placebo effect is hugely powerful. And wouldn't it be great if we really understood the mechanisms that made it work? And I do believe that you could design actual clinical studies to do that. It's not like an intellectually impossible thing to do, but it might lead to some unethical things like not treating people who really need to be treated, or comparing two different placebos. Like, here's your shamanic light enema versus your Mark Hyman herbal blend. Those are different placebos. Maybe they have different outcomes. It's possible to do that. It's just very complex, time consuming. You actually have to do work. It's way easier to sell an idea without evidence, which is what we see these people doing over and over again, and then claiming credit for the successes and then blaming the failures on your poor adherence or some other externality. So they claim success where they don't necessarily deserve it. To some degree, medicine does that too. Even the antibiotics, you credited your appendectomy going away with an antibiotic to the antibiotic, even if 80% of the time it would have gone away anyway. But at least there is broad spectrum statistical analysis showing that there is a clinical effect, where we don't see that in anything that Mark Hyman puts out. I would just trash, because he's just not a credible human. I've known him personally. I've met him a couple times. Like, he has invented this idea of functional medicine, and he's made a killing on it with his books, with his podcasts, with his appearances, with his relationship with the Cleveland Clinic, et cetera, selling you hope plus a little bit of scientific data that makes you feel like something's going on. But he doesn't know how to interpret it. No one does.
And tying into that, had a recent patient who asked me, going through depression, about a lot of times patients do things without asking their doctor, and a lot of times they're neutral. Maybe a supplement is going to kill you, but said, I took creatine because I heard it helps with anxiety and depression. I said, most people I know who take creatine are working out a lot, and they're lifting weights, and they're doing it to lift weights. And we do know for mild to moderate depression, anxiety, exercise is about as effective as antidepressants. So
Sure.
suppose, did you start increasing your exercise as well, taking creatine? Yeah, I started working out 6 days a week. I'm pretty sure that probably has more of the insight than a controlled trial where you're getting a slurry. Kind of talking about the connections and what are the implications, what is in it for people who are selling these supplements and offering these things.
Currency. That's it. Currency and fame and like appreciation. We all like likes and subscribes and whatever on our Instagram profiles. We like engagement, we like comments, we like affirmation, but they also like money. And you put the effort into the channel, not just for the clicks, you do it for the cash. And there's that old statement, old adage, follow the money and you'll see where things shake out. And I do find that like making these criticisms is very difficult because I am also on YouTube. I also try to make money on YouTube. And the fact that the ecosystem exists does not invalidate all information which occurs in the ecosystem. However, you really need to try to understand more than like you have to understand where your hope is coming from and what is actually being offered. Usually cures, they don't really have to advertise for them. If something worked, if you had a cure for cancer and it worked, everyone who had breast cancer took this supplement slurry and got better, that would travel around the world like wildfire. And everyone would be like, I don't want to take the light enemas anymore. This thing works. And it was a slower process for that to happen. People would die along the way as they try out different things. But what we see in the modern world is we're not seeing a lot of miracle cures coming down the pipeline. The miracle cures of antibiotics, of the polio vaccine, of the smallpox vaccine, like those things, we haven't gotten a lot of miracle treatments super recent. Maybe GLP-1s. No, yeah, GLP-1s are pretty great. We've shown substantial and significant effects from GLP-1s. Go take those. They're verified by science, especially next year when they come off, their patents get expire and they're generic. That'd be great. But I think that people sell that hope and that we're very attuned into that hope that you will get this cure for the known ailment. And so with that hope, you go pursue it. And you'll also find people out there who will say, how dare you try to undermine my hope? I have a hope in Mark Hyman will fix my XYZ condition. And what are you offering that's better, Scott, you truth teller? I'm not offering anything better. I'm offering the truth. The truth will not heal you. It will just make you not be a sucker. That's what it will do. You can then go pursue Mark Hyman's bull, and it also won't fix you, but you'll spend more time doing it.
Yeah, I think it's asking the questions, where did you come with that? How did you get to that information? Where did that come from? Show me the evidence. How did you come to that conclusions? This can go on from the internet to a functional medicine type local office where somebody may end up making a big part of their income comes from selling these supplements. I think starting up a supplement company for $28,000 and selling that with that. You did a recent series on AG1. They can check out your video, but can you give us a summary of what happened and something like that could get to such high success? And what are some things that were red flags that stand out that could make us more aware so that we can be better consumers?
Sure. So Athletic Greens, or AG1, is a green powder that you put into water in the mornings, and it's supposed to fill all of your nutrient gaps. So you need nutrients in your body, and this green slurry shake with its slick marketing will cure those gaps and give you better energy and digestive health and a lot of sort of squishy terms that are very subjective. And that's what they claim. And AG1 was founded by a criminal from New Zealand named Chris Ashenden, who had a real estate scam that went backwards on him, and he was charged with 54 counts of violating the New Zealand Fair Trading Act. And he fled his trial, went on the lam, and ended up in Arizona and founded this supplement company as a fugitive from justice, because, as he says, America is a great place to do business. So that's the history of the founder, which I think is a great starting point when trying to evaluate claims, right? If someone is a known liar and a known criminal, why would you say that their marketing is honest now, just because it sounds good? So that's your first red flag with AG1. But what AG1 has done, which has been so remarkable and in fact brilliant, so they created the powder for pennies on the dollar, and there's stuff in it that is arguably healthy. And then they said influencers around the world, whether you're Andrew Huberman or Peter Attia, who's an investor in the company, or whoever, whatever ripped six-pack guy or gal, will tell you, buy AG1, it's backed by science, it's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And they get 30% of the recurring subscription revenue into their pocket and AG1 keeps the other amount of money. And this has led to an astoundingly popular and successful campaign where they run clinical trials in bad journals with bad reasoning that basically, that weirdly, this is really funny. They run these trials and then the trials show it doesn't do much. Even their canned research shows it doesn't do very much. But at least they can say we have science. We've clinically proven that this does something. And the way you do that is if you measure a thing, it doesn't really matter what you measure, but let's say you measure a lot of things like coin flips, right? You're going to find that if you flip 1,000,000 coins, sometimes there's going to be this one coin flip you did where it landed heads like 8 times in a row. Isn't that remarkable? So if you just measure more stuff, you're going to find an abnormality. Then they claim the abnormality as a success. And even though things like the gut microbiome and your metabolism, your psychological assessments on personality scores, those are always changing anyway. It's no different than the placebo. The other things that they do on their canned research is they use placebos that actually have an active effect. So if I take water and then AG1 and I take these for a month, water is inert, doesn't do anything. But if I had in this glass instead bleach and AG1, that AG1 is going to look great compared to bleach. And they use something called maltodextrin, which is not as bad as bleach, but it has an effect that is known and measured. So AG1 always looks better than their placebo. It's just all smoke and mirrors. And we can't expect you, viewer, to go and read those studies. Like, who has time for that? And then if you read the studies, like, did you know what maltodextrin was? No, you don't. You have to come to someone like me. There's other people out there too who actually did do the work and be like, no, this is all bull. And this is the world we live in, right? Where it's all lies. And there's very few people trying to poke holes in it because there's so much money to be made on the other side. Like, I sometimes wonder, why didn't I just become an AG1 influencer? That would be a way better career path.
Yeah, it's kind of a ethical decision when you're going through this, and almost when you cross into that, I know many people you've looked at who may have had some good science and then yet get into this borderline recommendations, and then it gets into, it's hard once you go down that slippery slope, and then people just like buying a car because there's a celebrity baseball player driving it or a movie star. You're like, well, I don't know, have I really looked into, is the car better? But we know it works, right? Those endorsements work, and we all have to be critical in asking those questions. And it's a lot of money involved. I know one of your videos said, okay, I made, a few $1,000s critiquing this, but how many millions of dollars were made in the AG1 all through all of this? And you're doing a service, and thank you for doing that service. And hope that more people can connect and follow you so that you can try to bring good evidence and support for them. One of the areas that I've heard that maybe in the functional medicine world as well, your regular doctor only has these tools in their toolbox. But when you go to us, we have this other toolbox, as if it's like this special box in the shelf. It's the special treat that grandma has only for Christmas. And that's the special thing that we only bring out, but we're hiding it from you. And it's, no, there isn't this special. We go some based on evidence, and then you go, maybe I got better. Placebo can make you feel better. And the therapeutic alliance and those lifestyle, and that's what you're selling. Often I have a brother who's a part-time magician, and it's like the illusion. You put your hand over here, look at this, but what's going on with the other hand? It's the supplement isn't doing it. It's the other thing that you're doing along with it. It's just something you don't make money off of, saying, make sure you go to bed every day at the same time, get up at every day. And I want to do a parody YouTube short of, here's my version of AG1, which I do eat probably 4 mornings a week. I'll take a handful of mixed greens with some lime juice, some frozen fruit, and some water and some ginger, and I got a smoothie. I'm pretty sure healthier than whatever is in AG1. But
yeah, even if AG1 is neutral, which is, it seems likely, it's not I don't believe it's actively hurting you. There's people claim there's some lead in it and whatever, but like my guess is that it's fine. It's fine. It's just expensive marketing shill. And the way I like to think of it now is not really to evaluate the efficacy of the product, which I have done, but it's actually to evaluate your mental health when you fall for this bull. Because if we become gullible suckers who fall for anything, what else are you being taken for a ride on? Everything from politics to other grifty things that you buy. You just take everything on faith. You believe the lies, and that leads you in the modern world. I think it leads to psychosis. Like, I think that we live in a world where collective delusion is everywhere because we want to believe the lies that we're told. And that desire for things, for health or wealth or, good for relationships or whatever, has led us into a collective digital unreality. And that is, I think, at the heart of what I'm really concerned about when I talk about AG1 and these predatory business models, is that we are becoming less critical thinking. We're being manipulated by the algorithms. We're being manipulated by callous people who want to take advantage of us and profit in that process.
Thanks again for all of the work that you do. And I encourage people to follow you online, can share how they can connect with you.
Yeah, just go to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, just put my name in the thing. It's Scott Carney. And I'm all the other places. When you put my name into the other thing and type in Scott Carney, I'm there. That's the place.
And you can get connected through other sources like Substack, where you're doing newsletters and communicate and connect with you there. That's one of the ways I was able to connect with you, as well as following you online. And I thought it's nice to have somebody out there sharing some reason. To finish, what, if any, hope do you have moving forward that there may be some possible help or direction that things may be going to help balance this out?
It's going to get worse before it gets better. With the recent sort of health chain guidelines going under RFK, we are seeing the embracing of pseudoscience at the highest levels of government. We are seeing grifters like Mark Hyman taking photo ops with RFK constantly, and also Gary Brecka. These people who are like known liars and known charlatans. A lot of them have like years of petty theft violations. Like, these people are criminals in a lot of cases. We're seeing as an overturning of truth, of science, of belief in authority. And it's not going to get better, not in the immediate future, which means you need to be triply skeptical of basically everything you hear on the internet. And I honestly don't even know where you go for authority anymore, because the people who used to be authorities had government positions. And I'm not saying the government's great. The government's all fucked up in a million kinds of ways. But at least there was like a continuity and institutional knowledge and stuff that was there. It feels to me that it's been gutted. And what you're going to have are some legitimate scientists and researchers trying to put out information on their social media networks, but they're going to look just like the grifters, right? They're going to have the successful ones will have a flashy overlays and whatever. They're going to do the hooks to get you in, and they're going to be indistinguishable. So I don't know how we're going to find truth in a few years. The best idea is just to burn your phone and become a farmer. I don't know what you do. I don't know how you get out of this. We're all stuck in it together. You have opinions too. You know how this goes.
Yeah, no, it's hard. And I think for many people who are living with chronic pain syndromes, as I'm learning over the years, often are neurodivergent, some are autistic, and get caught into a little bit of black and white thinking. I've had some patients who come to me, and I think most of them appreciate the time I take. But sometimes if they're convinced that they do have this path they were on, a functional medicine route, and I'm supposed to kind of go along with that. And when I kind of, in a doctor way, listen, and I don't just come out and say that's not good evidence because they've invested. I had a patient who was convinced that they had lead toxicity and a special chelation therapy, and they spent half their retirement. And I'm like, and he saw me once or twice, but didn't like that idea. And basically, it's that, no, wait, you're telling me I got snookered by all of this, that I
Yeah.
fell for this. It's like with the sunken cost mentality that you invested this and you're now
Mhm.
bought into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in the era of scams, and no one wants to admit that they've been scammed. And it's medical scams, it's financial scams. There's something called pig butchering. Go Google that. It's insane. There's so many things that are going on right now to make you uncritically give up something valuable. And yeah, the sunk cost fallacy is exactly what it is. Once you have been scammed, you don't want to have to look back at your own actions and realize it, because exiting the cult is also very difficult. And then what are you left with? It's not like someone else, like the world of truth is offering you a comfortable home. No, the truth is hard. Like facing truth is a difficult process with not always positive answers. It's usually easier for us to live in a fantasy world. So when your patient comes to you, you have an almost impossible job of telling them what truth is. And I am sorry for your life, your chosen career path, because you're not going to be able to convince people of reality.
Part of why I wrote a book on these complex issues that are very complex in trying to, and sharing what we know, sharing what we don't know, and where the gaps are is, and why I continue to do this. As I say, office visits are short, but these are complex, and recognizing that there's so many different aspects. I did just an episode sharing a story with Chuck Carroll, commenting on his battle, and he said his wife lost her job in the world of TV. His mother-in-law got sick and Alzheimer's. His mom got sick. He's working long hours and went to all of this, and it was a huge amount of stress impacted, even though he was eating a healthy vegan diet, but he was so worn down with stress. And there's no quick, easy fix for that. Somebody might say, oh, you have adrenal fatigue, and again, sell you special supplements and all of these other things to say that. And so that's part of my goal, is sharing that out there, sharing the information, trying to give it as much of an evidence base in this world where most of, when you look at, okay, chronic pain podcasts and you search, majority of them have some level, or if not a huge level, of functional alternative, not evidence-based support for that. And there aren't as many doctors out there. I know you talked with Dr. Mike, and it was very common, and there are some out there, but it is it's a lot of work on top of seeing patients on a regular schedule to try to put this together. And my wife's like, when are you going to quit doing this? I'm like, I don't know, until I think there's enough good support and out there and enough to talk and try to get respectable people on that are sharing good evidence, having people from NIH doing legitimate studies, and yet validating, as I share stories of people who are going through this that are rough, but they didn't get cured because they took the magical supplement.
And it's the problem with evidence-based medicine is that there's not enough of it out there. We always want more evidence. You come to a point where the science stops, and then you're on your own trying to navigate the world. And that's actually where the world of wellness can be beneficial. After you've gone through all the evidence-based stuff that's out there and you're doing as far as we know, the correct protocols, it's not bad to dip your toe into alternative therapies. It's just, you have to realize what the dangers of that are, both for your own mental health and also potentially actually damaging yourself with a controversial therapy that actively harms you. And I think that all of us, to some degree, try different things. You mentioned earlier, the functional medicine doctors are spreading, they're saying that you have to sleep, you have to drink less, you have to eat a reasonable diet, and like that. And they're saying that the mainstream medicine doesn't tell you this oftentimes, but that's just not true. Mainstream medicine absolutely tells you that stuff. They've just claimed territory for themselves. And you have this 80-20 thing oftentimes. Sometimes 80% of what they say can be totally legit. Like, they understand how the endocrine cycle works, and they can tell you how insulin spikes happen. And oftentimes they get most of it right. And then there's the 20 or 10% that is just complete flim-flam, made up bull, where that sounds really, it's always the stuff that sounds the best is the bull, right? The thing is, oh my God, all I had to do this one simple thing and everything changed. And that's how you start spotting this stuff. But it's hard, and I don't know how you do it, man. I'm trying.
Thanks for spending your time. Is there any last things that we didn't cover yet that you want to share?
No, I think I just hit it with my last ramble. So I appreciate all of you being here, and you can subscribe, spread this video far and wide, and the internet, let the algorithm do its thing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.